And we're going to kick off the show with Benjamin Sesko. Once again, talking about this man. The reports are stating that new bids have come in from both Manchester United and Newcastle United. But Craig, if we take the Manchester United angle here, it feels as though the general consensus on this panel is that even with Sesko in that Manchester United team, that's not enough to finish in the top half of the table next season.
The top half?
Top half.
I would expect them to be in the top half. I mean, if they're not in the top half, even with just signing Mbemo, then Ruben Amorim has to go. I mean, they were not in the top half last year because they had this horrendous run. I mean, I thought you caught me off guard there, because I thought you were going to say... I did. I said not in the top half. I thought you were going to say not in the top six. And
so what's the best they could do with him?
Well, they've signed Mbemo, they've signed Cunha, and they may sign Sesko. That doesn't paper over the other deficiencies in the team. You could look at the full-back area, you could certainly look at a centre-half position, and you definitely 100% could look at the middle of the park. That being said, I mean, currently it would be a struggle, I think, to get in the top six, but the top half of the Premier League, Manchester United, with one of the most respected young managers in the game, albeit he struggled and has struggled since he came in, with international footballers all over the team, all over the squad, and we can debate whether they're good enough to be on the Liverpool. Well, it's not a debate. They're not on the level of Liverpool and Arsenal and I suppose City and Chelsea and all the sort of runners and riders that are chasing, like Newcastle and Aston Villa and one or two others. They're not on that level, but come on. Top 10 in the league? Yeah. If they're not in the top 10 in the league, even with the signings, then he has to go. I mean, it's not even difficult. So with these signings and maybe one or two, I think there's a lot more expected of him than finishing, 9th or 10th in the Premier League. That's totally unacceptable.
So, Jan, with varying degrees of optimism, if Benjamin Sesko is to come in at Manchester United, what are your thoughts on how he'll translate a player coming from the Bundesliga to the Premier League, this player in pretty much focus here?
Yeah, well, the last former Red Bull Salzburg striker who came to Dortmund and went to Manchester, he did okay, Erling Haaland. So Sesko, he's a kind of same player, but I don't expect him to go all that in, but he's a great player. He has to adjust, as every other foreigner needs to do when they come to a new country. Remember Kai Havertz, we remember Timo Werner. That was a bit COVID and all those kind of things. So I think it's come down to not the nationality, but the personality, how much they want to do this. Remember, this is a Slovenian player who has been in Austria, who's been in Leipzig, and now he's going to adjust to another country. He's accustomed to that. He's done that before. I don't think that would be a big problem. Then it all depends, of course, of people going. Craig was talking about the tools, the weapons they have in front. I mean, but you need players to play them up. You need legs in midfield, Manchester United. You can't concede goal. You need a goalkeeper. There is a lot of things that make you stick with a team, because of course it's easier to come to a team that's functioning. It's a big difference between being Florian Wirtz coming from Leverkusen into a Liverpool team that he will have a lot of the ball. That they will be good in this season as well. Benjamin Sesko, if now he goes over the line and he comes to Manchester United, he has to come to a team that's functional as well. Will he be a 22-year-old that's going to lead the line for them? No, he won't. But he will be a very, very good addition for Manchester United in their way to get top six. I think they will be top six. But
if he's not going to lead the line for them, Jan, who is?
I take them metaphorically. I don't say that he's going to lead the line. I don't think that there will be the only responsibility. He's not the one. That's Bruno Fernandes' job. That is other players' job to lead the line in those. But he will lead the line and be in the team. I think when you see the three now up front for them with Fernandes and in and around, you have players that can sometimes cross a ball, which will be very, very important. But Manchester United now seem to they're a bit off balance, but it's still like 3 weeks at least left of the transfer window, and they need to invest even more to get a team that I predict will be top 6.
I still think top 8 is Manchester United's ceiling, with or without Benjamin Sesko. And listen, and while the additions in Mbeumo and Cunha are good additions, and certainly improve Manchester United, let's be honest, nobody was banging down the door for those two. And even with Sesko, and while I take Jan's point, I think it's more a case of Sesko will be that great player. I'm not sure he is that player right now that takes Manchester United from 15th to 6th. That's a hell of a jump. Maybe in time and given his age, he progresses to become that player, but I'm just not sure that he is right now. And that's a big ask of a 22-year-old, regardless. So let's be honest, and while there is a bit of a bidding war right now for Benjamin Sesko, that's going on because Newcastle are worried about losing Isak and need a replacement. Otherwise, again, it's just Manchester United who's the potential suitors. So, all that being said, I think Manchester United move in the right direction. I still think they have far too many deficiencies. I'm not sure if those additions that have arrived this summer is enough to see them jump 6 places. 8th for me is still their ceiling.
At least they're trying to buy. At least they're attempting to buy players that are gaining interest from other clubs.
Yeah.
You know, when Højlund came in from Atalanta, it wasn't a great scramble for Højlund. I don't remember anybody, although they paid big money. I don't remember many big clubs falling over themselves to try and sign Anthony. And they've got a few like that, whereas Mbeumo was a player who interested a lot of people from Brentford. Cunha was a player who has been at a high level and has interested a lot of people. Arsenal were looking at him. There was talk about Arsenal last January to try and bolster them for their second half of the season. That didn't happen. We know he's a good player. We know he's a little inconsistent at times, but we know he's a talent. And Sesko is a player that both Newcastle have been bidding, United have been bidding. Before Gyökeres went to Arsenal, his name was linked with Arsenal. So, and as Jan said, he's been around for a youngster. He's been around 2 or 3 countries, and he has got good experience. So I'll give them the due in that sense. They're trying to sign good quality players here, or decent quality players. Let's be honest about it. Most decent players would improve this United side. That's how low they have got. That being said, though, when you look at some of the garbage, and I'm being serious here, for the money spent in the Premier League, right? For the money generated by television in the Premier League, the amount of absolute dross teams in the bottom half is scary. With all that money spent, they've got more money than any of the leagues in Europe, but yet they spend it terribly. So let's not get away from the Premier League's the greatest thing ever. It is not. It has a very strong top end. Last year, not so much, because Liverpool were head and shoulders, but it generally has a very strong top end. Then when you sort of go under 7th, 8th, 9th into mid-table, it's absolutely bang average. And I mean bang average. You got Crystal Palace, and Oliver Glasner did a great job, but they have a very small budget. They sell their best players, and they can still be a sort of mid-table team, and they can still have the cup run, which was sensational for them last year. So if we're saying, and some of my colleagues here are saying that they don't expect United to get in the top half, that's a hammer blow. I mean, there is no way that, absolutely no way, come hail or shine, that Ruben Amorim is going to survive sitting in 12th or 13th on the table. It's just not going to happen.
I think it's a valid point to say that if you compare it with the recruitment they had under Ten Hag, he had his way of playing, but he also had his way of recruitment. He wanted those players from Ajax, a lot of players from Ajax. Also remember, we see how Rasmus Højlund has struggled this season. But if we saw his stats before he came to Manchester United, I think he had 9 goals in the Serie A, not against the best oppositions. He had 6 and 7 goals for Finland. For Denmark, and one was a hat-trick against Finland. That has changed a bit. But having said that, Craig, I saw Tottenham being the low part of. They won the Europa League. That is one thing. But I think that Premier League got to challenge themselves. As it stands now in this transfer window, Sunderland, the newly promoted team, is the seventh biggest spender in the world right now.
But let's talk about...
There's a lot of things going on.
Obviously.
Well, again, that sort of backs up my point, Jan, that the Premier League gives teams the ability to go out and spend this money. Not all of them take that. Not all of them take that choice. But my point is, if you go to La Liga and even the Bundesliga and other leagues that we cover, and not just the leagues that we cover, but certainly those are the ones that we watch the most of, you could argue that some of the teams around mid-table, having spent a lot less money, are technically superior to some of these teams that are sitting mid-table in England. And I think that's not good enough when you have the ability to spend what they do compared to other leagues, who I think, for example, La Liga, which we do every week, I think the teams that are, and I'm not saying, you know, La Liga team would beat a Premier League team every week or whatever, blah, blah, blah. But when we watch these games, I think a lot of these smaller teams are technically superior to teams in the Premier League, having spent a lot less money. And that's why, for me, that, you know, the talk of Manchester United next year, not even being good enough to get in the top half, would be a shocker to me. So I think they will. But I wouldn't have my mortgage on them having a great season, but my God, they have to be good enough to be in the top half.
Going back to Jan's point earlier though, Craig, when you talk about players coming specifically from the Bundesliga to the Premier League, and you're talking about these big fees that we've seen paid, it can be hit and miss. Is it a risk they just have to take?
Well, I mean, what do? Stop fishing in a pond because you catch a couple of bad ones? I mean, sometimes players leave a bad taste. You know, Timo Werner, is he... he's not even on that list. Timo Werner, for me, sticks out as a player who had a big... Kai Havertz would be another, but you can't say Kai Havertz has been terrible. He's not been terrible. He has, you know, he scored the winner in the Champions League final. He was sort of in and out of Chelsea. I think he's been okay at Arsenal. He's done some good things, done some average. I just don't think he's lit it up. But Timo Werner, for me, was the one. He had 2 goals, one at Chelsea and one at Tottenham. And he was a regular German international, very experienced player. And he looked like a kid in the playground had just sort of lost all his confidence. So there's good and bad. You saw that list. There's been some really good players. And I don't think it's any league in particular. I think sometimes players just come into a certain league, they lack confidence or they struggle. And I honestly don't believe this, and a lot of people throw this out there, I don't know what the guys think, but when people say, oh, they struggle with the physicality of the Premier League, I don't buy that. No. I mean, it's not a wrestling match. I mean, Spain's physical, Germany's physical, not many more leagues physical than the Italian league, you know, so I don't buy this, the Premier League is too physical. Sometimes some players settle, some players don't, and we see that on some of these graphics. That's not a reason not to go back to your country. You're buying an individual and you're just hoping that he's going to be the right fit for you at that time, which Sesko or these other players may or may not be.
Listen, I'm in total agreement, and to your phrase, and hit or miss. And while there have been some rather spectacular misses, there have been some fantastic hits. Kevin De Bruyne stands out for me on that list. Now, if you take that chance that you get another Kevin De Bruyne, that is every reason to go fishing in that same pond yet again. And again, I'm with Craig. It's worrying for a Tuesday. But
it's a long week, Shaq. Yeah. Are you back on this week?
Goodness me, I'm concerned about the rest of the week now. But a lot of times, and you see that, and it becomes easy to say that players don't fit into England because of the physicality, or they going the other direction, there are issues. You've got players like Scott McTominay, who's come through the English system, doesn't make the grade for Manchester United, goes to Italy and does wonderfully well as he does. You've got players like Cesc Fabregas, who played with Arsenal and even for a small man, coped with the physicality very well, and that's as big an understatement as you can make about Cesc Fabregas, but maybe didn't have that same impact, and I know injuries had a part in going back to his native Spain. So there are all kinds of ways you can look at this that I don't think does anyone any true service. And you've got to keep taking that chance. You've got to hope you get that right player, that player fits in. Because even for the best of managers, Sir Alex Ferguson had a few misses himself. You get some wrong, but on the hope that you get quite a few right.
Well, you got to go abroad as well, haven't you? Sorry, Jan, you got to go abroad just quickly, because who else? If you want to shop for an English player, a British player, a British striker, where are they? Where are they? I mean, Harry Kane's at Bayern. He's not gone anywhere. He's in his 30s now. Where are you going to go? Who's the next? Am I missing something here? I mean, Marcus Rashford. He's somehow one to watch. He's going to Barcelona. You wouldn't call him an out-and-out striker.
Ollie Watkins.
Ollie Watkins is a decent signing, but I mean, you're not.
He's what, in his 30s now?
He's 29.
I think, Craig, what you are saying is that you will go to Germany, and now it's always trends, aren't there? That you go somewhere to find the players. What do you know about German players? They're well educated. They've got a good coaching system. They've come through the ranks. They are tactically aware of adjusting. But I think this is down to personalities. There are players in Munich that can't adjust to Bayern Munich, and they came from North Germany coming in there. So I think that I remember when I went the other way. I think it could be harder to go from England to Germany, because in England you had that tradition. And if you walked into a dressing room, people said, "Okay, see you. Good to have you here," and you were adjusted straight away. I mean, yes, things have changed since the 90s, but it's just a matter of a culture. In Germany, when we went the other way, when I went to Frankfurt back in the days, there were more hierarchy. I was warned by some players I should avoid. The guy I played, I got number 9, and who used to have number 9, he didn't talk to me for 3 months. I didn't care, but it's still, that's how it is. So I think that it's down to personalities. And Timo Werner, when he went back to RB Leipzig, when he went back to Germany, he looks like a kid there as well. And now he's back in Germany. So it's very much down to how you are welcomed in a club. And when you saw that this Jadon Sancho, yes, he was not a hit, but he's English last time I checked. So there is a lot of things going on with every player there.